Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are broadcasting from beautiful Marrakesh. I thought I'd share this wonderful picture that I found on the internet about Marrakesh, where it is always sunny. So, today's session, we are going to be talking about how to prepare for a conference by aligning customer supplied source text in different languages, in this case, two web pages. So this is an event I am preparing for in English. It's called the Marrakesh City Academy Urban Shift. And the customer has provided me these two links here. It's public domain, so there's no confidentiality issues. And here we have the French version. So we're going to see how we can prepare one text one spreadsheet in this case, that will align the English sentence with the French sentences so that we can find a key word in during the event without having to create necessarily a word for word glossary. For this workshop or session, you will need Control A, Control C, Control Shift V to paste text only in Google Sheet. We'll be using Google Sheet. If you're working off a Mac, you replace Control with the funny Apple sign or Command. But otherwise, I'm be working on a Windows computer. So let's dive right in. I have my two different versions, the one in English, and here we have the one in French. So I'm going to go to the English one first. I'm going to do Control A to select everything, Control C to copy. Then I'm going to go to sheets.google.com. You can do this in Excel. I prefer to work with Google Sheets. And I open a new spreadsheet. As you saw, I go to the first line in the first column and I do Control+Shift+V to paste the text only. As you can see, I have only text. Now, let's just cancel this very quickly to see what happens if we do Control+V instead of Control+Shift+V. I'm going to do Control+Z to cancel, and now I'm going to do Control+V to paste. And as you can see now, I have all the formatting in my text, which can be useful, but I just like it can also create problems. So I'd rather not do this and just use the raw text. To do this, again, I'm going to cancel what I did, Control Z, and do Control+Shift+V to paste only the text. So here, as you can see, I have only the text. I'm going to do the same for the French. Control A, Control C. I go back to the first line in the second column and I do Control V. And now, as you can see, I have equivalents. I have more on here in savoir plus in French, so it's all good. So far, so good. I need to look at it in more detail. Now, obviously, some of this content is not going to be useful. So the skip to main content is not useful, blah, 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 academy. Okay, so I'm going to select this line and with the arrow, click on line 8. I'm going to delete all these rows here, delete 1 through 8 because I don't need them. Date and time, similarly, I don't need location. I don't need host. I'm just going to delete those lines as I don't need them. Delete rows. As you can see, I have an empty row here. I'll show you how to get rid of all the empty rows in one fell swoop. So let's make each column a bit wider so we have a bit more text to play with to see what's happening. Okay, more on, we don't need this. A photograph of a busy city, we don't need. I select these two lines, I delete. February, this February here, this line I need, this line I need. Again, I'll show you how to get rid of the empty lines. Speakers and agenda, I need that. To people, speaker to be confirmed, and to speakers online, I need that. Expert speakers, I need that spit. Let's keep going down, down. Participant speakers, Albert, City, Moroccan, for those. Okay, so now we have share. That's we don't need. City, Marrakesh, we don't need. Delete these rows. We have the keywords that could be useful. The country, it's obvious we don't need that. See for World Resource Institute, we don't. This we already have higher up. We can get rid of. ICLIE also we have more. Learn. We have this before. We don't need it. Learn more. Landing page we don't need. This we don't need. Urban biodiversity is one of the two topics of the training we need. This bit we don't need, we delete. Accessing urban climate financing, we need. This we don't need, we delete. Case study, we might need. This word we might need. What is below? Let's see, the date we don't need. Adaptation, we don't need. Urban, okay, this line 73 we might need, but the others not. And the rest here, sign up for a newsletter, website translation by Weglot, Consu, and okay, all this we don't need. So we delete the rows here. Now, let's get rid of all these empty lines that we have here and here. The easiest way to do this is we go to a new column here. If you find this a bit confusing, we can change the format. If you find the text, you go to wrapping and you clip. So we know that this cell is empty. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get rid of the empty lines, we're going to type 1 in here. Whoops, my bad. Let's go back, type 1, type 2 in the one below, then select both of them, click and hold this blue button in the bottom right, drag all the way down. So we're way past the end of our text. And now we go back to the top, we're going to data, sort the sheet by column A to Z. Now, as you can see, all the empty spaces, line 2, for example, is now at the bottom. So I can select this line, and now with ctrl+shift down, I go to the end, the bottom of the page, and I can get rid of all my rows here. And now these numbers, I asked the computer to sort the sheet by column A to Z, and here we have the text again in its original order. So now we have two columns, and the text is aligned. Have the English on column A, and the French in column B. Now, in many cases, we will have long paragraphs. To have a better idea of what I mean, we're going to change the wrapping. In format, we go to wrapping and we do wrap. Now this, as you can see, shows you all the text and changes the size of the cells. As you can see here, we're not aligned top, so we want to go to more, do vertical align, and select top. That means that now our text is aligned top. You don't have to, it just makes it look nicer. As you can see, we have some long paragraphs, and if we're looking for a keyword, it might be difficult to find it not only in the original, say in English, but also in the target language, the French in this case. So what we're going to do now is break down this paragraph into smaller pieces. Now, obviously, you could do this manually, but there's a much faster way of doing this using what we call non-printing characters. And this is available in Word. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our content in English by selecting all the column. I do Control+C. Now I go to Word. I have my Word document here, and I do Control+V. Now I've printed all my text. I've pasted all my text into Word. I can also, for illustrative purposes, copy all the content, the columns A and B into Word. And I will do that now. Please note that if you don't delete the lines at the bottom, like I did, they will appear in Word document and will make it a bit of a nuisance. So let's go back to our Word document. Here we have our text, and we still have English in the left column and French in the right. But what we are going to do is focus on these characters that you see here that appears, this funny round with 4 bits in it. I have no idea what it's called, but this is what's called a non-printing character. And if you want to see them in Word, you do in Windows, you do ctrl+shift+8 to hide or reveal non-printing characters. For example, if I go back to Word here, I'm going to hit ctrl+shift+8, and this funny character has disappeared. So remember, the principle here, what we're going to try to do is to break this big paragraph into smaller sentences. To do this, I want to focus on all the column. I'm going to work on all the column at once, and I'm going to get rid of the cell format because that can interfere. I'm going to merge all the cells by right-clicking on the column. Let's do that again. Click on the column, and when this black arrow appears here at the top, then once you've selected that column, right-click, merge cells, and our text is now merged. And if we reveal the non-printing characters, ctrl+shift+8, you can see we have these characters here. This character here is called an end of paragraph, and it is very useful. What we're going to do is break down this paragraph into smaller sentences. Now, as you know, a sentence ends with a full stop. So what we're going to do here, and just in this one column, I might explain later why we do it just column by column. It just makes it simpler when you're pasting back into Google Sheet. In this column, I'm going to hit Control-H to do find and replace. And here you see it says find what, replace, and below it says replace with what. So I want to replace full stop space by full stop, end of paragraph. Now, end of paragraph, you need to know this. You do Shift-6 to get the hat, and then you do a P. This word will recognize as the end of a paragraph. And if we look at our paragraph here, I've highlighted, and then I do find and replace, and I do, whoops, it's not going to work. If I do it here, it's going to do it just on this paragraph. I do replace all. As you can see, now this paragraph has been broken into 2 sentences. And obviously, you're going to want to do that on all the text, not paragraph by paragraph. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel what I just did and select the whole column again. This time do Control-H, find full stop space, replace it by full stop hat P, and I'm going to do replace all. And I've made 6 replacements this time. I don't even need to know where they are. It's just been done. It's been done. Do I want to search the remainder of the document? No, because that could interfere with our formatting. Just click on no for the time being. I will prepare something specific to this later. So I click on no. Now I have my text. Make sure that I have my text by clicking on the column again with the black arrow at the top here that you can see moving. I do Control-C to get my text. I go back to my G Sheet, my Google Sheet. Now I select column A. I want to insert a column to the right. I make sure that I am at the top of my text, and I do Control-Shift-V once again to paste the text only. As you can see, this big paragraph here is now been broken into 2 paragraphs. We have the first part here from February, co-hosted as appears here, co-hosted by Key Nationals. So already we've already broken down our text into smaller pieces. We're going to do the same thing for the French. So I go back, select the full column. I have already selected this column It's in my Word document. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did for the English. Here, I'm going to select the whole column by making sure that the arrow is at the top of the column. And then I merge the cells. I do Control H. The computer has remembered the last thing that I did, which is to replace full stop space by full stop hat P. So I do replace all. I don't want to search the remainder of the document. I close this. I make sure that I select my column. I Control C, copy it. Go back to my spreadsheet. I'm going to this time or put a column to the, I insert a column to the left and make sure that I'm on the top cell of that column, Ctrl+Shift+V to paste. And I have my matching texts. Now, I don't need the first column that I had. I'm just going to delete that. And you will see that this empty space here is going to disappear once I've also deleted this column. So visually, it's much more pleasing. There's less wasted space. And I can now see that I have the name of the speaker here in this column, and I have the title of the person. So when I know that, for example, speaker Andre Almeida, will be speaking, and his title, apparently Andre, I believe, would be a man. His title will be announced in English. To find his title in French, I could do Control F and find Andre. Andre appears twice. As you can see, the cell is highlighted. I have Andrew Almeida da Villa. In English, he's an officer. In French, he's a chargé de mission. So there you go. I don't need to do an exact glossary. I can find very quickly by doing Control F to find the key word. Let's do now another word. I know from studying this text before that the word practitioner is going to appear, and it appears once. It appears here in this paragraph. Now, in the middle of an interpretation, this is a long paragraph. I would have to read all this long paragraph to find the single word practitioner. So one thing that I am going to do here, because this paragraph is too long, I'm going to break it down into smaller pieces. To do this, I'm going to insert some lines. I don't know how many lines here I'm inserting. It doesn't matter. I'm going to insert some rows, 8 rows above, and I'm going to break this paragraph here into smaller pieces. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the whole column, but this time just for these 2 cells. Let's go back. I'm copying this content here, and I go back to my Word document. I don't need any of this, so I do Control A to select everything, delete to get rid of it. Notice the non-printing character that appears, and I do Control V. And now I can work on this text, this one paragraph, which is one sentence, and break it into smaller sentences. To do this, again, I go to the top of the column, click on this to select the column, do Control H, but this time, instead of doing full stop space, I'm going to do comma space, and I'm going to replace that by comma hat P. And look at what happens to my sentence. I do replace all, and I have 3 replacements that were made. That long sentence has now been broken into 4 separate sentences. I do not want to search the remainder of the document, so I click no. I go to the top of that column, Control C to select, to copy, sorry. And now I can go here and I will do Control V to paste the text only. And as you can see, this paragraph now has been broken into 4, which is one sentence, has been broken into 4 smaller sentences. I'm going to do the same for the French now. I go back to my Word document, close here, select this column, do Control H. Similarly, the computer still remembers that last time I wanted to replace comma space with a comma hat P. I'm going to do replace all, but and it tells me 2 replacements have been made. So if you remember here in the English, uh, we had 3 replacements, which meant that we had 4 sentences. Here, we only have 2 replacements, so we're going to have to tweak that. And when we paste it back into our G sheet. Do I want to search the remainder of the document? No. I close this because I don't need it anymore. I make sure I select this column. I do Control+C to copy. I go back to my G sheet and I paste my content here using, again, Control+Shift+V to paste only the text. And as you can see, I now have 3 sentences here, but I have 4 sentences in the English, so I need to tweak it. Let's compare sentence by sentence. This is the same. This is the same. This is clearly not the same. So we have the region in 4 days of in-depth interactive learning. Now, this happens when you translate. Sometimes the comma gets translated into et, whatever they're called, I forgot. Conjonction, conjunction. So here we're going to we're going to create meaningful segments. And to do this, I'm going to take the interactive learning here, put it at the end of this sentence, interactive learning, break it at the equivalent at the French, apprentissage approfondi et interactif sur des questions critiques goes here. So now we have a much smaller sentences. We're going to delete these lines. These rows, we don't need them. We're going to delete this row here. We don't need it anymore. Let's go back now to our practitioner. As you can see, practitioner here appears in a much shorter segment. This cell is much shorter. Let's just keep that previous paragraph that we had. We can see there are 2 of 2 instances. The word practitioner appears here in a long sentence. It's much more difficult to find in this paragraph. But in the shorter sentence that we have here, we can find practitioner much more easily. And crucially, we can find the equivalent in French much more easily, which is praticien. So there you go. This means you don't have to do a glossary word for word. This is much faster. You can just break down the original provided to you by the customer so that you can find a keyword in the middle of a much smaller text rather than a page or a long paragraph. And you can also find the name and the title of a speaker. For example, we had Andre. Andre appears twice. We have Andre Almeida da Villa in English, he's an officer. And in French, we can see clearly he's a chargé de mission. So that's pretty much it. I hope that you have enjoyed this. Just to recap, you need Control+A, to select everything, Control+C to copy, Control+Shift+V to paste text only. You need to know the basic non-printing characters, and you need to remember Control+Shift+8 if you want to hide and reveal the non-printing characters in Word. And in Word also, you use Control+H to find and replace NPCs. In here, what we did here was we used Control+A to copy from the web page. Start again here. From the web page originals, you do first Control+A to copy, Control+Shift+V to paste the text only, no HTML, into a G sheet. Then you need to sort out what is useful from not useful. Then you copy the column from G sheet to Word. And in Word, you're going to use ctrl+H to replace full stop space with full stop @p to break long paragraphs into sentences. Similarly, if you have long sentences that make a full paragraph, you can also replace space, sorry, you can also replace, if need be, comma space with comma #p. And then you might need to tweak in case of differences, as we saw when the translation has removed a comma. And on the day, you use Control+F to find the original and its equivalent in the target language. So there you have it. I hope that you've enjoyed this and keep following us for more tips on how to prepare as an interpreter for events.